War is usually a symphony of noise. From the thunder of artillery to the rattle of machinery, combat is defined by volume. Sound is information. Sound tells you where the opponent is hiding. Sound gives you a chance to react, to run, to survive. But imagine a battlefield where that rule does not apply. Imagine watching your squad mate fall, but hearing nothing. No distant crack, no muzzle flash, no warning. By the time you realize you are under engagement, the second shot is already in the air. This is not a ghost story. This is the doctrine of the Soviet Spetsnaz. To the West, it was a rumor for decades, a shadow. To military engineers, it is a masterpiece of subsonic ballistics. And to millions of gamers, it is the defining sound of the exclusion zone. Today, we are analyzing the VSS Ventores, the rifle that proved that sometimes the whisper is far more effective than the scream. To understand why this device exists, we have to go back to the Cold War. The year is 1981. The Soviet Union is operating in Afghanistan and preparing for missions across Europe. The Special Forces had a specific requirement. They needed to neutralize sentries and high-value targets in absolute silence. At first, they tried the obvious solution. They took the standard AK-74 and attached a suppressor, but it failed. You see, you cannot cheat physics. A suppressor only hides the muzzle blast, but it does nothing to stop the projectile itself. A standard military round travels at 900 meters per second. That is nearly 3 times the speed of sound. As it tears through the air, it creates a sonic boom, a sharp, violent crack that sounds like a whip snapping past your ear. You can hide the device, but you cannot hide the ballistic crack. As long as you break the sound barrier, you are loud. The Soviet engineers realized the truth. If you want true stealth, you have to slow the world down. They had to go subsonic. They needed a round that traveled slower than 300 meters per second, but this created a new problem. A slow projectile is weak. Kinetic energy depends on velocity. If you take a standard round and slow it down, it becomes ineffective. It would bounce off a modern helmet like a pebble. So, how do you defeat an opponent in body armor? With a slow round? The answer was engineering. You make the projectile heavy, insanely heavy. They developed the 9x39mm cartridge. If you look at it, it looks swollen, but it is a ballistics miracle. The projectile weighs nearly double that of a standard sniper round. It does not pierce the air like a needle. It pushes through it like a sledgehammer. The armor-piercing variant, known as the SP6, features a hardened steel core. Even moving slowly, it carries enough energy to penetrate 8 millimeters of steel at 100 meters. It turns a car door into wet paper. It renders a Kevlar vest useless. It was the perfect specialist ammunition, but it needed a platform. The rifle they built, the Ventores, is a paradox of design. Visually, it looks almost crude. It features a skeletonized wooden stock, borrowed directly from the Dragunov SVD to save weight. The receiver looks like stamped steel. It is incredibly light, just over 2.5 kilograms. But the genius is in the barrel. In fact, the weapon is the silencer. The barrel is drilled with spiral rows of portholes. As the round travels down the rifling, gases are bled off into a massive expansion chamber. Inside, a series of slanted baffles strips the energy from the gas, cooling the blast before it can speak. It was designed for total deniability. The rifle strips down into 3 main components in seconds. During the late Cold War, agents could carry the system inside a standard nondescript briefcase. An operative could walk into a city, find a vantage point, assemble the system in 30 seconds, take the shot, disassemble it, and vanish into the crowd. However, We must separate the legend from the reality. Video games have taught us to treat the Venturas as a long-range tool. In reality, it is a short-range instrument. The physics that make it quiet also make it difficult to use. Because the round is so heavy and slow, gravity pulls it down aggressively. At 200 meters, it is surgical. At 400 meters, you are effectively launching a mortar shell. The round drops meters below the crosshair. To hit a moving target at that distance requires a degree in mathematics. It is also a temperamental machine. The integrated suppressor acts as a sponge for carbon and dirt. It requires constant cleaning. If you neglect it, it malfunctions. The magazine only holds 10 or 20 rounds. This is not a tool for a prolonged battle. It is a tool for one specific moment. So, why do we love it? Why is this obscure Soviet tool more iconic than a modern M4? One word: atmosphere. It started in 2007 with Shadow of Chernobyl, the zone, a place of hazard and despair. In this world, the Venturas was a status symbol. It was Excalibur. When you finally found one, you felt a shift in power. The unique chevron reticle, that distinct dry but clack sound, it allowed you to clear a bandit camp without them ever raising their defenses. Then came PUBG, teaching a new generation about the difficulty of its ballistics. And finally, Escape from Tarkov. Here, the VSS became the meta. Players realized that the cheap, ugly rifle, loaded with SP6 ammo, could defeat expensive body armor in the blink of an eye. It became the great equalizer. The VSS Venturas is a relic. It was built for a conflict that never happened, by an empire that collapsed. In an era of modular rails and lasers, it looks like a museum piece, but it survives. It survives because it offers something modern platforms cannot. Modern combat is loud. The Venturas offers silence. It is steel, wood, and quiet precision. And as long as there are shadows to hide in, the Venturas will never be obsolete.